Doesn't seem fair, does it? I get to take off my mask. I'm going to do this right here. So, there we go. So Borden might have thanked me prematurely for coming this morning. I said to him today, I said, you shouldn't thank me until afterwards. You may regret this. But then I realized that maybe it was part of a strategy, because by having me here this week, you were going to be very glad to have him back in a couple of weeks, right? So this was all just part of his pastoral strategy. Thanks for having me here today, and thanks for being, sharing this with me today. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We're going to talk about blind spots, and because we all have them, right? And they're in our lives. We can't see them because we are who we are. We live in our own skin. And so it's not often we get a chance to recognize our blind spots, but you can guarantee that the people around us do, right? If you are married and you say to your spouse, what's my blind spot? They're going to know. And they've probably been waiting 20 or 30 years for you to ask the question. And so it's so true of ourselves that we have these blind spots. But even more importantly, and maybe just as critically, it is very, very true also that within our church organizations, within our faith journeys, within our churches, we have some significant blind spots as well. And we don't recognize them because we come to church every week and we do church, right? And we sit and like, so just so you know, Borden and I did not coordinate this. It's important to note, right, that he didn't ask me to say these things. I had a guest speaker at our church once, and afterwards, and they said quite a few, like, really just convicting things. And afterwards, I had a congregation member come up and say, did you tell him to say these things? And I said, no, but did they hit home? And so, anyway, so we haven't coordinated with this, although with this introduction, it was like, wow, okay, there's the Spirit at work. So we have a way of doing church, we have a way of sort of coming to church and being the church, and we get caught up in those ways so much so that sometimes we don't see our own blind spots. But you know who really does? The people that are not in our churches. The people outside the churches that look in, and they see, what we do and versus what we say. They watch your Facebook posts, and they know what you represent from your Facebook posts, your tweets if you tweet. Anyone tweet here? Wrong crowd? Yeah, okay. And your lawn signs, maybe your lawn signs, how's that? And they watch these things. They see how we live, they see how we spend our money, they see how we share, they see how we spend our time. They see it in what we do say, and more importantly, they see it in what we don't say. In fact, our silence can say much more about where we put our priorities and what we believe and what we stand for and what we support. It can say much more than the words that we say. And so they watch this, and they start asking questions. Because after all, as a church, we say to people, we say, hey, God is the answer, right? It's true. We say God is the answer. Jesus is the answer to a lot of this world's problems, all these world's problems. If we could all just get behind Jesus, this world would be a much better place. And so they listen to that, and then they watch us, and they start asking the questions. Is it true? Is the church really the answer? Is the church really the cure? Is the church really supposed to be, is it really this blessing that they talk about? Or is it the curse? Do you know what a blessing is? Have you ever heard? You know what a blessing is, right? Yeah, we talk about it in church. And what's interesting is I bet you there's a few people here or even at home that are going, actually, no one's really, we talk about it at church, but no one's really said what it is, right? Because we just have these buzzwords and we use them. Well, there's several meanings of the word blessing, and especially in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, they have a main word for blessing, and it is, you can go to the next slide, it is He is lost. I gave him a script and I said, good luck. So in case you're wondering, poor guy, you're doing great. Barak, like Obama, but spelt differently. Barak is the root form of the word blessing in Hebrew. And look at the definition that the Hebrews or the Jews would understand this word to be. They say it's to kneel or to bring a gift to another while kneeling out of respect. Or the extended meaning was to do or give something of value to another. But look at that first meaning here. To kneel or to bring a gift to another while kneeling out of respect. That is not the modern day Christian way of thinking of blessing. Because the person that does the blessing is usually the person that is, I do this all the time. You can shout out an answer if you want, Google right ahead. The person that is doing the blessing, right? The person that's being blessed is usually the person that's on their knees. Yeah. Have you ever done a laying on of hands? You ever commissioned somebody? The person gets down on the front and they circle you and the hands come out over top, right? Or we bless something and the hands come out over top, but the person that's receiving the blessing is always the one on their knees. In the Jewish way of thinking, it was exactly the opposite. The person doing the blessing would be on their knees, blessing the person who would be standing in front of them. This is important for us to know as we go through our chat this morning. It changes our perspective and should change our perspective and our approach as Christians when we think about, are we a blessing in this world or are we a curse? So we're going to look at Genesis 12. We're going to dive into that and we're going to look at Beatitudes quickly. And Borden's going to do this when he wants me to stop. So Genesis 12 is about Abraham, right? And God told Abraham, but I'm going to call him Abraham because we all know that's what he becomes. God told Abraham, leave your country, your family, and your father's home for a land that I will show you, right? So God starts off and says, Abraham, I'm not going to ask for a lot. I'm just going to ask you basically just to walk away from just about everything you know and go to this land that I show you. And then he says, I'll make you a great nation. So do this, and I'll make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I'll make you famous. Right? I was going to say stuff like YouTube famous or TikTok, but again, wrong crowd, right? Yeah. At home, so I'm just kidding. But everyone wants their 15 seconds of fame, right? Or maybe not, maybe you folks don't, but boy, oh boy, they line up for it. Look, the whole reason stuff like YouTube exists, as far as I'm concerned, is so that people can get out there and get follows and likes and views and all these things, because everyone wants that 15 seconds of fame. But in Abraham's case, he got famous. God kept his promise. Here we are 5,000 years later, sitting in this church, talking about Abraham. And in the Christian faith, we all know who Abraham is for the most part. In the Jewish tradition, they call him Father Abraham. In the Muslim tradition, they look at Abraham as a significant person in their faith system. You put those three faiths together, and I guess he's only known by a few billion people in today's world. You can't get much more famous. So God keeps his promise. And says, and Abraham does become famous, not just in his day, but down through the ages. And so he says, I'll make you a great nation and bless you. And then he follows up with this. And we can miss this so easily, but it's so important. This is like a crucial part of the verse. He says, and you'll be a blessing. It's not you might be a blessing. Or, hey, Abraham, if I do this for you, you should be a blessing. Or, hey, Abraham, if I do this for you, I'd like you to bless some people. It is a directive. It is a command. It is a direction as much as the commandments, if you will. It's as much as when Jesus says, a new command I give you, love one another. This is a direction straight from the beginning of the Bible in Genesis. And how beautiful is it to see that in Genesis and know that it carries all the way through the Bible. This, my friends, is a mega theme of what God wants us to be about. You will be a blessing. I will bless you, and you will bless others. And we know God keeps his promises. So now we know God has an expectation. And then he says, I'll bless those who bless you. That's great, right? I'll curse those who curse you, I'll curse, which is a little dark and ominous by the sounds of things, right? But then the most important sentences, and we get caught up in that sometimes because we say, those who stand against us stand against God. Bring it, and that's not what this verse is about. But the most important part of the verse is this: all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. And Abraham says, whoa, and he puts his hand up, and he says, God, can you say that again? Because I think I misheard something. And God says, yeah, Abraham, all the families on earth will be blessed through you. Completely countercultural to what the understanding of the day was. Because in that day, you didn't bless other families, you looked after your own. It was a tribal system where your tribe had your space and your land and your sheep, and if the tribe over there had more water or resources or whatever, then you would go and attack that tribe and take it from them to preserve your own tribe. It was all about your tribe, the preservation of your tribe, the flourishment, the prosperity of your tribe. And if there was a neighboring tribe, a neighboring group that was a threat, there was only one thing you could do about that. So the culture wasn't to bless other tribes, right? It was to obliterate them. And God comes along and says, I'm going to, like all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. Now, in Abraham's day, it was a little simpler to put a quantity on that or put an understanding of that, because he would say, hey, God, do you mean that tribe 2 hills over and 1 to the right, 1 stream to the right? Them too? And it'd be like, yeah, them too. But today, think about what this is telling us. It means there's not a single person on this earth, whether we agree with them or not, whether we understand them or not, whether we fit in with them or not, there's not a single person on this earth that as Jesus followers, as people who believe in God, we are not to be a blessing to. Isn't that fun? Man, the Bible's so much fun, isn't it? Yeah, people should read it a lot more and all the time, because it's just, there's so much in it, and it's so rich, and it gets you so excited because you see the potential that God has for our lives. Jesus picks up on this theme. We're going to jump right over to Beatitudes. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly because there's a number of them. And this is this section, and it doesn't say it here, but what's the traditional wording for this? Blessed are they, or blessed are those. Blessed are they, blessed are those. Remember the traditional, that's what we really resonate with. You'll find it in communal readings and so on. So I took it from the NLT, so we're going to switch it up a little bit here. But this is it. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. We're going to start looking at postures that Jesus is pointing to, and he picks up on this theme that happens between God and Abraham, and he brings it into the New Testament. He gets up on the Sermon on the Mount, and he goes right, because this is his first sermon, he goes right back to the beginning. He says, well, I might as well start here, because that's where God started. So here we go. So the posture here is this: blessed are those who are poor and realize their need for Him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. I read this beautiful piece in one of the commentaries I was looking at prior to this morning, and the commentary writer said, we forget sometimes that heaven isn't full of stuff. And heaven doesn't worry about your position or your power or your priorities or whatever. You know the old expression, you can't take it with you? Yeah. And he says, for those people that have let go of things, those people that have released things, that aren't hanging on to stuff or their power or their positions or whatever else might be, their status in society, if you've already released that stuff, you're going to fit into heaven really, really well, because it's already set up that way. Blessed are those who have a posture of being poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. We've all lost something, and it sounds strange when we say blessed are those who mourn, because we all know, well, most of us, I would say, know what it's like to mourn and to grieve for the loss of someone or something. But the beautiful implication here is blessed are those who mourn, because in the moment of mourning, and again, here's your posture, in the moment of mourning, you recognize something is wrong. Something is broken. Something isn't the way it's supposed to be. In that particular moment, you probably, whether you realize it or not, most identify with God in such a way that says, God, your creation isn't right. It's broken and it needs to be fixed and healed. And God comes alongside and says, I know. Isn't it horrible? I grieve with you for the sin of the world and the brokenness of our world and for what has happened to you, because it shouldn't have happened this way, but it has. Blessed are those that are open enough to see the sin of the world as something that God doesn't want, but that affects us all of creation. It goes on and says, God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the earth. Like the meek shall inherit the earth. We use that all the time. Movies use that all the time too, right? But here's it makes sense. Have you ever been blessed by someone who's proud? Maybe. I mean, it probably didn't feel good. When someone said, "Hey, here's how can I help you?" and it didn't come from their heart. But I'll ask you this question: Can you think of somebody right now that, in all humility, stepped into your life in a moment of need and blessed you? If I gave you 10 seconds to come up with a name, you don't have to say it out loud. But if I gave you 10 seconds, I guarantee that in those 10 seconds, someone's going to flash into your mind and you're going to say, that person, when this happened, beautifully cared for me in a humble way. Blessed. It's posture. It's a posture that he's taking here, right? Blessed are those who are humble. And he says, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Look at this posture. This isn't just someone who says, there's something going on, I'm going to make a Facebook post. That happened, I should get involved for a little while. This is someone who craves justice like it is nourishment for their bodies. This is someone who looks at justice and says, I cannot help but pursue justice, because in the same way I need food and water, I need to have a voice for those people who do not have a voice. That's a posture. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy, and blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. So, as we go through this, we're almost at the end, you see the posture, right? Is it starting to become, there's a pattern? Is it becoming evident? Are you seeing something happen here? Because all of these things are from remember the message, the meaning of blessing in Hebrew? All of the things we're talking about, all of these things that are listed here in the Beatitudes are from a position of kneeling, serving, being humble, merciful. This is all from a position of, this isn't people standing up here and saying, here, we can help you, here, we can help you, we've come to save you, this is a position from being in a kneeling position, a posture of humility that says, wow, we are here to bless. And if we do anything else, forgive us for that, because we've been called to bless. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. Oh man, beautiful. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing the right thing, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who speak out, even though it costs them something. God blesses people that take a stand on an issue, even though they may lose friends, even though people may judge them over it, even though people will look at them and say, well, that's not scriptural, or that's not right, or I'm not comfortable with that. But God blesses those who deep down know it's right and says, but I am, and I feel that conviction. The Spirit has moved. I will stand on this truth. I will stand with these people because it's the right thing to do. A posture of coming alongside. As people who follow Jesus, the time for us sitting on the sidelines is long past. I don't know. Does it bother you to watch the news? It bothers me to watch the news. It really bothers me to watch the news. When I watch the news And no, I'm going to say it. This is going to sound a little bit, but when I watch the news, and evangelicals are standing in protest movements and saying things that they should not say, supporting things that no Jesus follower should support, and cheering for a man who all he does is ridicule his opponents and lies and deceives and has no integrity. I don't know who I'm talking about, do you? And here's the thing. I know there are people in Canada that certainly like this guy. And I know there's some people in Canada that are Christians that like this fella. I just don't get it. Because we are never to assume that kind of a posture in our faith. As soon as we do, we become the curse. Right? The curse is out there. The curse is everywhere. The curse of sin is everywhere. It's breaking people apart. It's tearing us apart in our relationships. It's causing us to hate each other and to protest against each other. It's causing us to push other people aside so we get our place at the front of the line. That's all part of the curse. If we join in on that, how are we different from the rest of the world? And how can we say that we are following in the footsteps of Jesus? Yeah. So silence is not an option. Silence is complicit. We have to speak up on behalf of other people, risk our own position at the front of the line, right? If we're privileged and we don't recognize it, we're doing something wrong. We have to recognize where other people, and it happens right here in Nova Scotia. This is not an American problem, right? This is not an other world problem. This is a Nova Scotian problem. So we have to ask ourselves things like this. How can we be anti-racist? Not how can we not be racist? Because most of us here would probably say, or all of us would say, I'm not racist. But how can we be anti-racist? How can we stand alongside our black brothers and sisters in Nova Scotia and say, we are with you in the injustices that are happening right here in our backyard? It's our job. How can we be a blessing to them? Like how about our Indigenous brothers and sisters with all the stuff that's going on with the lobster stuff? I don't know enough about it. I'm not taking sides actually. But how on earth can we stand alongside them and recognize the fact that, hey, folks, whether we agree with them now or not, it doesn't matter, because there's this word called colonization that created incredible injustice, and it needs to be repaired. And unfortunately, the church of the day was at the forefront of some of that injustice. And we are part of that. I didn't know this. I was talking to a social worker, and she said, well, Kevin, did you know that there was a residential school not like, I think she said like 15 or 20 kilometers away, that was open until sometime in the 1990s? And I thought, no, but I should have, because I'm old enough to be part of that. I think we all are. So what role do we play in this? How do we come alongside and say, how can I help? We can't fix the past, but we can recognize the harm, and we can step in to be the blessing that changes the way things happen. Because that's what Jesus lays on our hearts, to be the blessing, to be the change. A new command I give you. A new command I give you, says Jesus, love one another, because by doing that, then they will know that you are my disciples. That's how they'll know. Not because we have pretty words or nice buildings, not because we have a great message, but because we will love one another unconditionally. And we will be the blessing that God asked Abraham to be from 5,000 years ago, and we'll live it out today. Yeah. So we can't pick and choose anymore. We've got to bless people. We know that. But in the doing of it, it's all about our posture. We're not going in racing in to save anybody. We're not going into we are coming in to ask the question, how can we help? I think. And if you look at the Beatitudes postures that Jesus left us with, right, and I'm sure he was building on Abraham and the blessing of Abraham. If we look at those things, we will be serving with humility, by showing a posture of this soul poverty, this posture that says, God, I too am unworthy of your grace and your mercy. I am not better than people around me. I do not have, more blessing because I happen to be in this church. I am just as great a sinner as anybody else, and yet I have this beautiful relationship with Jesus that I have as a blessing at my fingertips. And God, you've given it to me so I can share this. Mourning with people over the sickness of our world, and it's not just sickness, their loss, mourning with them in their loss, and being a comfort to them in the same way that God is a comfort to us in our time of need. Right? Finding ways to heal in this world without having platforms, pointing fingers, starting a fight. Has anyone ever maybe you have, has anyone here a scrapper in your young days? Anyone here scrap? No? I fought once when I was a kid. I was in grade 2. The school called my parents. This guy pushed this little girl out of line, and I thought I'd be a hero. So I got into a fight. It's the last fight I was ever in. Yeah, Mom and Dad never let me forget that. But have you ever tried to start a fight from this position? Some of you may not see. Have you ever tried to fight from here? Good luck with that, yeah. Good luck with that. Humility. Love with this pureness of heart without judgment or pride. Show mercy. Again, it's all about posture. Show mercy. Thirst for justice. Work for peace. Risk persecution. Love your neighbor. Love all your neighbors. Love all the families of this world, regardless of whether they see eye to eye with you, whether they come from the same place as you, whether they look like you, whether they're male or female or whatever they identify as. It doesn't matter. We are in a place where we love all the people. And Abraham was told by God that the posture he wanted Abraham to do it was from his knees. Let's pray. So, Father, here we are this morning, and Lord, it's been a blessing to be here together this morning and in this church. God, we pray that this church can continue to do what it's been doing, to continue to reach out into the community, continue, God, to be looking for ways to serve and to reach and to come alongside, to support each other, but also to support those people outside our church that are looking at us and saying, "What are you?" Asking us the question, are we the answer? God, we know we have the answer, and we know we have the truth, but help us, God, to show it through our love, not just our words, but definitely our love. And may we be the blessing that Abraham was to be 5,000 years ago to the people of this community, the people of our city, and the people of our province. Help us, Lord, to be the voice from our knees. Love you, God. Amen.